Whale explosions, nature's biological bombs. When we think of explosions, we often imagine man-made dynamite. But what if we told you that nature has its own explosive surprises? Imagine a 45-ton creature suddenly bursting into an explosion. Yes, we're talking about exploding whales, a peculiar and startling phenomenon of nature. About 50 years ago, something unforgettable happened on the Oregon coast. The first ever broadcast of a whale explosion began with a sperm whale that had become stranded and was deathly still. The Oregon Highway Division was in charge of the coastal area and was to blame for this mess. To clean up the whale, they asked the U.S. Navy for help. The Navy, on the other hand, had a rather unusual idea. They thought it would be too hard to use standard methods like warships, trucks, or cranes because seagulls and crabs were eating the whale carcasses. As an alternative, they suggested using dynamite to blow up the whale into tiny pieces that would be eaten by seagulls and crabs, letting nature take its course. The Oregon police officers thought this was a great idea and chose to give it a try. As the Navy prepared the dynamite, tens of thousands of people from Oregon flocked to the beach to see this strange event. People in the area heard about the breaking news and were ready to show the explosion live. 500 kilograms of dynamite were set off just 10 meters from the whale on November 12. Cameras and microphones were ready, and about 75 people gathered to witness the event. The explosion, as described by reporter Paul Lindman, was nothing short of spectacular, with a loud noise and debris flying meters into the air. But when the smoke cleared, a strange twist showed up. Instead of the expected aftermath of dynamite, the sky rained oil, the rotting fats of the whale falling like raindrops. As the smell of rotting meat filled the air, people ran away in fear. The live broadcast continued, though, and Lindman joked that he became a landlubber newsman. That was not the end of the story, though. To everyone's surprise, the whale remained unchanged on the shore, and the dynamite seemed to have performed more liposuction than an explosion. A new problem arose when blubber pieces hit cars on a highway 200 meters away and damaged them. That wasn't the end of the fear. The explosion scared the crabs and seagulls, planning to eat the burned fat mixed with the flavor of the night. Because of this, workers from the Oregon Highway Division had to clean up the beach over the next few weeks, even though it smelled terrible. The U.S. Navy seemed to disappear after the explosion, which was strange. The cleanup was a mammoth task, and many weeks later, the Oregon Highway Division workers were still toiling to rid the beach of the lingering stench. Finally, the reporter who lived on land, Paul Lindman, said that this crazy event taught him a valuable lesson. Those in charge should not only remember what to do, but also what not to do. Let's delve into the reasons behind this unusual phenomenon. There are some key points to consider. Firstly, when a whale comes to an end, the bacteria inside its body multiply, generating significant amounts of methane, ammonia gas, and more. Second, whales can dive hundreds to thousands of meters below the water because their skin and muscles are built to withstand high pressure and keep working even after they die. But in this case, these structures work against them because they stop the bacteria from making high-pressure gases. Because their skin can handle high pressure and they constantly make gas, whales are unintentionally bioweapons in the natural world. When the explosion finally occurs, the result is nothing short of an explosion, propelling decomposed guts, blood clots, bacteria, and a deluge of toxic gases far and wide. Here are some other reported cases of whale explosions. It was the third day of the Chinese New Year in 2004 when a sperm whale got stuck on the shores of Yunlin, Taiwan. The whale smelled terrible. Government officials immediately called for trucks, cranes, and 50 workers to solve the problem. Professor Wang from National Cheng Kung University took charge of the operation. Upon initial inspection, Professor Wang estimated the whale to be approximately 20 tons. Two 40-ton cranes were called in to help, but the vast creature was still too heavy for them to lift together. Their job took 13 hours because they had to call a 120-ton crane to help them move this huge guy onto a truck. Notably, the whale's actual weight was an incredible 55 tons. As the news spread, more than 600 viewers braved the cold and wind to catch a glimpse of this giant creature. The spectacle even attracted food vendors selling snacks, utterly unaware of the potential for a whale explosion. Professor Wang knew, though, that danger was close. When a whale leaves the cool water of the ocean, it turns into a time bomb that is ready to go off. He quickly started the transfer process. Yet another challenge arose. The giant, which was 17 meters long, couldn't fit on the flatbed truck that arrived. The staff needed a solution badly and quickly found a 100-ton flatbed car. The giant truck arrived on the 25th night after the whale had been out of the water for more than 24 hours. The gases within its body had accumulated significantly. Not wasting a moment, Professor Wang scheduled the transfer for the early morning of the 26th. Professor Wang and his group left at 3 a.m. Unfortunately, another setback occurred. When National Chung Kung University realized that the whale weighed 55 tons, they said something unexpected. They didn't have the tools to dissect something that big. With little time to spare, Professor Wang urgently sought an alternative location. He finally found a spot at a wildlife sanctuary in the suburbs after several hours of searching. To get to this place, though, they had to go through Tainan City. At 6 a.m., the truck entered the bustling Ximen Road Xiaobei night market, where an extraordinary event occurred. This 55-ton monster blew up in the middle of a city, distributing putrefaction, fats, blood, and foul gases at speeds of up to 70 km/h within a third of a second. The explosion threw around many stinky things, and the whole area was filled with stench. Every store, car, and person within 10 meters was affected. People who saw it said the smell was almost life-threatening. After the event, scientists from all over the world investigated what happened in Tainan. They were confused by the strange way the whale exploded. A whale should explode after being out of the water for more than 20 hours, according to the generally accepted theory. However, this particular whale blew up in advance, deviating significantly from the expected time frame. Scientists had to look into the mystery more because it went against what they thought they knew. They tried to figure out why it had exploded so early and how to keep this from happening again. The first thing that made them doubt was that the explosion happened on the whale's back, which was thought to be the least pressured area. A group of investigators from the University of Liverpool looked at video footage of the whale being taken out to sea and developed a theory. The back skeletal muscle was damaged when the tail was pulled with 2 cranes. It caused too much pressure on the area, which caused it to explode in the back. The second doubt was raised by a team from California a year later, focusing on the explosion wound. They didn't believe there was a large area of vascular congestion and thought it might have formed before the blood flow stopped. Findings from the University of Liverpool showed that the whale was probably still alive when it was put on the truck, with blood still flowing through it. However, the California team provided a rational perspective, suggesting that the whale had likely been struck by a ferry and died. The wounds and swelling on its back were connected to where it was hit. The collision had caused internal injuries that ultimately led to the whale becoming stranded and dying. Through scientific studies and calculations, researchers were able to figure out the following sequence of events. The whale was probably either sleeping or eating before it was hit because when they do these things, they close their eyes and only use their hearing. If a whale happened to be in front of a ferry during this period, the noise from the ferry would have made it challenging for the whale to react in time. In the end, human activities were identified as the root cause of this unusual incident. People can learn from this story about how complicated nature is and how people and animals can sometimes interact in strange ways. In 2013, a similar thing happened to scientists on Denmark's Faroe Island. They had to help a dead whale stuck on the beach, but this time they did it professionally. With protective gear on and a long knife in hand, they handled the dangerous whale with ease. The operation went smoothly and according to standard practice in a matter of seconds. The process went smoothly with only a tiny surprise turn. It shows the highest level of skill that people can reach in finding, transporting, and dealing with these kinds of incidents. A strange incident occurred in Newfoundland in 2014, causing an entire town to be amazed. Let's explore this intriguing story. Just imagine people discovering a gigantic ball on the peaceful shores of Trout River, Newfoundland. However, this was no ordinary ball. It was the head of a blue whale, and it had a strange secret. The whale's head was full of poisonous gases that started escaping through a small hole, rapidly filling the air with a smell reminiscent of a deserted fish market. At an impressive 4 meters in height, the whale head continued to produce foul gases, turning the entire town into an unbearable stink bomb. What made this situation even more horrifying was the looming threat of an imminent explosion, turning it into a potential whale catastrophe. Typically, when a whale passes away, it gracefully sinks into the ocean, becoming a whale fall and providing sustenance to many marine life, including crabs, fishes, shrimps, and anaerobic bacteria. However, fate had a different plan for this particular 60-ton blue whale. Instead of sinking gracefully, it found itself stranded at the seaside, turning what should have been an elegant whale fall into a nauseating whale explosion. As the town officials and central government grappled with this unprecedented problem, they realized they needed to gain experience to guide them through this bizarre situation. The whole town knew that if this ball were to burst, it could spell disaster for everyone, including their vital tourism industry. Scientists from the Royal Ontario Museum came to help the whale after it had been stuck on the beach for more than a month. They came up with a creative solution by cutting up the whale and keeping the parts for further study. The careful work they did started with taking out tons of fat from the tail. Next, they slowly let out gases from the head. They then used a tugboat to move the head to a place that had already been chosen. It was hard and smelly, but this task had to be done. At the specified spot in the middle of a strong smell, they carefully dissected the whale, taking out all the dead parts and labeling each bone very carefully. The giant heart, which weighed 80 kg, was sent to Europe to be made into molds. The rest of the bones were put into 3 containers and covered with compost. This step made it possible for more skin and fat to be removed. 3 years later, in 2017, the bones were found and carefully put together individually. The Royal Ontario Museum saw the beautiful rebirth of the whale. Today, when we visit these colossal skeletons, scientists emphasize a crucial point. If you ever come across a stranded whale on a beach, stay far away from it. They could explode at any time, and the force of such an explosion could be hazardous for people nearby.